Very welcome to this session of Holland Tech Meet. It's the third this year and the second session today. We have some exciting topics to touch. We had talked about the drones and the importance for the future infrastructure earlier on, and now we'll talk about brand protection and counterfeiting. The last session will be about battery and recyclable of especially from electronical cars. But my name is Tobias, and I will host this session of Holland Tech Meet. And the purpose of Holland Tech Meet is both to have an interesting and inspire all your entrepreneurs, businesses, and students out there, and hopefully we can touch some exciting points and perspective during this session. But we will also spotlight the good and interesting companies, entrepreneurs we have during these sessions. And I will soon introduce them, but a bit practical things is that since we are doing a Zoom webinar, your attendees could only use the chat function and the Q&A function, but we want you to use them to have an interaction between you guys and the panelists today. So feel free to ask some questions and wonderings if you feel like, oh, this I've never known, but more interesting of just send in a question and hopefully the panelists will have an answer to it. So brand protection and anti-counterfeiting or counterfeiting, it could be a really hard topic, and most of you might not know the bad effects that will have a result in buying a fake t-shirt in Spain or buying a fake clock in Sweden. There's some effects that will have a result from this. But first, I will introduce our panelists. We have Coraline, and Coraline works in DH Anticounterfeit as the product manager of the innovative collaboration software Origo. She is a former brand protection manager at Mercedes-Benz. She is a Chinese lawyer and holds a master degree in European business law from Lund University. Welcome, Coraline. Then we have Alexander, and Alexander worked as brand protection manager at Swedish watch and accessory brand Daniel Wellington. He has a background in insurance business and studied business economics at Lund University. Welcome, Alexander. And then we have Peter, who is the CEO of DH Anticounterfeit, and he has been working within the software industry for 20 years with a focus on new product development, SAS, solutions, and business to business. He has experience in various industries from energy and utilities, hospitality, e-health to now legal, working mainly in Lund, Malmö, but also London and Paris. He joined DH Anticounterfeit 1.5 years ago as he was intrigued by the company and industry and worked with companies worldwide to make true impact fighting counterfeiting. Welcome, Peter. And we have had some pre-discussions early on about counterfeiting and brand protection, and I know myself that it could be some hard terminology and some words that might flew over the head for the ones that haven't been worked with it as you guys have. But before we go into what counterfeiting is and about brand protection, I want you guys to just tell me and tell the audience about your driving forces and what motivates you with working in this sector and with this with brand protection and counterfeiting. We can start with you, Coraline.
Hey, good morning, everyone. The motivation for me is I grew up in China and myself has been a victim several times when I studied in Shanghai University. And myself has bought counterfeit several times. And then when I come to Europe, I noticed actually in Europe, there is a very mature legal frame to fight with counterfeits. And also I want to study how it's connected to China because China is one of the biggest trading partner with Europe. So I did my master study, my master thesis based on counterfeiting issues. And then later on devoted myself to the anti-counterfeiting career as well.
Interesting, thanks. Alexander, what motivates you in this sector? Is he gone? Yeah, bad connection. Then we hopefully he join us soon. We go over to you, Peter. What's your motivation?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So as you mentioned, Tobias, I've been working in the software industry for 20 years and from various industries. And I was very intrigued when I got to know DH Anticounterfeit 2 years ago. It's a really interesting business because both we can do something good for companies, but also society. And there also is also very interesting to work with global companies worldwide to help them to fight in this fight against counterfeiting. So I think it's a really exciting business because again, you can make some true difference to society and companies.
Yeah. Thanks. I think Alexander still have troubles to connect, but we go forward. He'll join us eventually. But Coraline, you and Peter and Alexander have prepared a presentation just to both talk about what DH Anticounterfeit do, and also now I think Alexander is back. Can you hear us, Alexander? Maybe. No. All right. This kind of thing is struggling still after 1.5 years with digital transformation. But yeah, that's life, and hopefully he join soon. Just shout out, Alexander, if you can hear us. Nope. All right, we go to the presentation. Coraline, you and Peter will narrow it down what counterfeiting is about, and about brand protection, and also what you work at with the companies you work for. So please share your screen.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, yes. So Peter, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I can just mention a few words about DH Anticounterfeit and our background before Coraline will move more into some terminology. So if you take the next slide, please. So DH Anticounterfeit, we actually sprung out of DH Solutions. So we started our business in 2007. And our first client was actually Sony Mobile in Lund that needed a system, a case management system for handling brand protection cases. So that was the start of the company, or the start of the business. And then in 2016, we established DH Anticounterfeit as a separate company. And today we have clients worldwide, with users in over 60 different countries. And this is something this is our niche market, and we're quite, we know quite a lot about the market and also about this industry, which has been proven also by the ICE organization. So as you probably know, there's an ICE organization that creates standards for various things like IT security and so on. So we have been appointed by the ICE organizations to actually draft a new standard for brand protection or brand protection management, which will contain things like terminology, standards, and best practices. So together with 20 other companies worldwide, from Japan to US, where we're drafting that standard, and Coraline is actually the project manager for that. And furthermore, something that I'm quite proud of, we're a company in the center of Halmstad. We're around 15 people working with this, with our software platform and doing delivery projects to various clients worldwide. And we have 50% men and 50% women. And we also, from 6 different nationalities. So it's a really interesting and fun company to work with. Yeah, that's just very short about DH Anticounterfeit. We probably go back to more to what we do and our the industry as a whole. But maybe I don't know if Alexander is back or.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm back now. Sorry for the technical issues here on my.
It belongs to this digital transformation. But Alexander, do you want to just before we go through with the presentation, do you want to? We talked about motivations and driving forces that you guys have working with this in a daily basis. Would you share your motivation for why you do what you do?
Yeah, sure. Maybe it comes also like from the internal and smaller perspective of supporting the company and supporting the sales of our products to the utmost possible way, and also like in the bigger perspective, maybe what impact counterfeiting has on society and so on, and also like what it is from a consumer perspective, which I'm sure we will deep dive more into later. But these are my main drivers for the work we do.
Perfect, thanks. Do you want to share your screen again, Coraline, and
Yes.
tell us about brand protection and counterfeiting?
Okay. Actually, we have one more slide about Daniel Wellington. Alexander, would you like to introduce Daniel Wellington as a company?
For sure, I'd love to. So Daniel Wellington is, as many people don't know, it's actually a Swedish company, and it was founded in Uppsala, Sweden 10 years ago in 2011, and has grown quite rapidly since that time. And we're now around 2,000 colleagues worldwide, and in offices in all over the world, more or less, and sold to most of the countries worldwide. And then Wellington, like what especially was the characteristic for the company was its very strong presence in social media and the influencer marketing on social media, where Daniel Wellington were one of the pioneers. So it is quite a tech-based and tech-savvy company, and which also has the benefits maybe in the brand protection work, because it's quite easy to make quick decisions and like more or less doing by learning, as we did in the beginning, as we did not have maybe like a big backpack of heavy infrastructure, but we were quite agile and could move and change direction quite quickly. So I must say it's a tech-based company that happens to sell watches and jewelry, but especially like the marketing machine within Daniel Wellington was one of the ground stones for the rapid success of the brand.
Thank you.
Thank you again. So then I will continue share some other slides related to what is counterfeit. Most of the audience might wondering, counterfeit, it's a very odd word. You don't see it very often. So I would like to make some examples on what is a typical counterfeit. You might already thought about Louis Vuitton bags or watches, or something you commonly use as apparel or clothing, shoes. But actually there are lots of counterfeits you don't want to have, or you will never wish you buy them. For instance, engine oil or any car parts. When you buy a brake parts, you definitely don't intend to buy a counterfeit. And the second option could be food, alcohol, milk powder, anything related to your health as well. And another option could be contact lenses. You might not notice in the market how deep down the counterfeit is in the market. It's spread everywhere around our life and also in the industries. But if I continue with another slides, what is brand protection? Brand protection team actually do a bit more than just fighting with counterfeit products, because product is the, product, of course, is the source of the profit for the company, but at the same time, it also stands for the reputation, stands for the company's reputation together with the protection of the consumer. So brand protection will have a bigger picture and bigger scope. For instance, we also work on unauthorized use of trademark. For instance, here we have a Mercedes-Benz baby car. From the very beginning, actually, Mercedes never intend to produce such product, but it become popular, and a lot of unauthorized manufacturer toy companies are producing this. And when there is an accident, then in the news, you will see a baby get electric shot in a baby car, which is severe and connected to the bad fates of the company, Mercedes. And also we have worked quite a lot with lookalike and knockoff products, which means the example here, like McDonald's, with McDonald's, it doesn't look exactly the same. Maybe the consumer will figure out the difference, but it's misleading enough to let consumers think McDonald's is somehow big. Yeah, the McDonald's could be McDonald's. Also, we work with gray market. Gray market means a product is sold cheaper in one country, and then there's a distributor or wholesaler import such product and then sell it to another country, which is more expensive. And this is against the contract with the company. And at the same time, we're working heavily on product security to enhance how to identify the product. So we know our product is genuine. Also, we educate consumer how to identify genuine product so they can have the ability to identify it by themselves as well. At the same time, like Alexander said, we work with market intelligence to provide market sales department what is the counterfeiting activities going on in the market, what is the competitors' activities in the market by screening the online social media or on the market. So market intelligence could be drawn from monitoring counterfeiting issues as well. So there are much more activities we're doing. The scope is much bigger than just to seize the counterfeit product. It's both internal improvement and also open eyes to the competitors, to the counterfeiters. Okay, then I will stop sharing my slides from here, and hopefully you get a very rough picture on what is counterfeit, because today we're supposed to have a conversation session, so I will not go into too much details about the legal terms.
Perfect. But I think that it's really important to like narrow it down and have like a common knowledge about what it is and what you like. Now you talk about the bigger picture of brand protection and counterfeiting, and it's good to have that view when we're going into this discussion for the audience as well. But you talked about like the bigger picture and what it is, but not so much about the effects and like what it does to the society. So my question to you is like, what this does for the society and or from a society perspective, and also for a potential customer that buys something that it's counterfeiting?
I can start. So the counterfeit business and it's really staggering how huge the business and the industry are. One believes that around 3% of the total trade in the world is out of counterfeit, and 6.8% of all the imports to Europe are counterfeit goods. That's the rough estimate. And the International Chamber of Commerce have created a report that was released a month ago, telling that they estimate that next year the global economic value of counterfeiting and piracy can reach $2.3 trillion, which is a huge amount of money. So this, as Coraline mentioned, this is not only for fashion, this is all industries affected, from automotive to consumer goods, to consumer electronics, to food, and so on. And it's a criminal activity from start to end. So where someone is manufacturing those products in a factory somewhere without any regulations, and then distributing it in the black market, and then selling it on either on online or on markets. So it's a criminal activity from start to end, and it's not only hurting companies' revenue, their reputation, their investments, their innovations, but also people's health and safety. And one believe that around estimates have done that around 500,000 people die every year out of counterfeited medicine. So it's not only that you buy a cheap toy or a cheap T-shirt from someone from town. It's a really huge problem both to companies, to people, and to society. And from society point of view, of course, it's about tax incomes, but also the danger of the product itself. So it's a very complex challenge for both companies and individuals and society.
Yeah, and that's what you talked about, like when you hear about counterfeiting and brand protection, you always think about fashion often, but you talk about now like medicine and health. And I when we had the prep or the pre-talk, I was afterwards going like, okay, I need to have something more to say than what I did say during our presentation or pre-talk. So I went to and like searched for what does it do with the society, and I get stuck in an article by International Chamber of Commerce from 2017, where they listed 5 ways counterfeiting hurt the society, and then there was genuine economic activity lost out, less public money for roads, schools, etc. Investment and innovation move elsewhere, greater crime and serious health risk. And I got stuck with 2 of these points especially, and that was less public money for roads and schools, where they told like business today, or like serious businesses, genuine businesses, provide essential tax revenues for governments through the sales tax in good products. But with the market of counterfeiting, these revenues are estimated to decrease with up to $89 billion per year. And that's like money who can been used for essential public good like schools, hospitals, roads, and other basic infrastructures that provides job growth. And also regarding like the serious health risk, they told in 2013 there was 120,000 children below age of 5 that died as a result of using degraded anti-malaria drugs in sub-Saharan Africa, which is a lot of children. Like what's your thoughts on that? And is it something that I can manage to see that if you work with this on a daily basis, you can see a lot of these examples? What do you think, Coraline?
Yeah, indeed, for anti-counterfeiting activities, we saw those eye-catching news, which are very scary. I do agree there are quite a lot of injuries and also lots of severe consequences, damages caused by counterfeiting product. At the same time, I don't want to make it too scary because it is still a business for criminal activities, for criminal groups. So if we treat them as, if we think, like they perceive themselves, they are also businessmen, but doing criminal activities. That's the way we perceive them and track the money, track their activities, and see as a businessman what make them to sell. It definitely hurts. It's not only hurts the society, but also in generally, it hurts people's trust to each other, to the place you go, to the product you buy. And it's a deeper hurt to the society, in my point of view. That's why most of our professionals has a calling to solve this issue. But at the same time, we have to admit counterfeiting issue is like the rest of the crime, you will never destroy it or make it disappear from society. You can always try better to run before them or chase them fast enough for them to not continue.
And how, as a like private consumer or customer, how do you work against these, or like you talk about chasing them and like not buying stuff, but can you do some more like spread the word, or what's the best effect of even if these guys are businessmen as well, they are doing some illegal stuff, what can you do like as a customer?
Yeah, maybe Alexander, you have the best example because you are trying to educate your client as well.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, as Coraline said, like we try to educate our current and potential customers into what they can do, like how they can ensure that they are purchasing the genuine product and so on. So we try to highlight our official channels and the authorized retailers we have around the globe to like give the potential consumers the confidence that if they purchase from these channels, they are 100% guaranteed to buy a genuine Daniel Wellington product. But in the opposite, if they would not purchase from these and would purchase from any third-party seller around the world, there is a risk that they are purchasing counterfeit goods and hence are supporting the counterfeit business. And some of the quite tragic examples that Coraline brought up, like what it actually does. It's not only like you don't only save like a little money on buying a cheaper knockoff product, but you might also support like criminal organization, like and that goes pretty deep, where maybe counterfeiting is only the outer core. If we like picture an onion, so maybe they use counterfeiting, which, as Peter said, is a criminal activity, but they might use it to fund even deeper like criminal activities such as prostitution, illegal gambling, or narcotics. And like maybe the inner core could even be that when you purchase a counterfeit product, you might be even supporting like terrorist activities, funding those, which there are connections between like the criminal organizations that are selling counterfeit and actually funding terrorism around the world. So it is a very important topic, and it's of utmost importance to educate the consumers, like sort of what they can do in the best way to avoid from purchasing counterfeit goods.
How easy is it to get trapped in like buying? You maybe buy something that you don't know is counterfeit. How easy is it to get trapped?
It is easier than many of us think. There might be like, I can take two different examples. Let's say you're in Thailand, maybe on the beach, and there is a guy who's selling a lot of handbags, watches, or sunglasses from his blanket. I guess most of us would have quite high assumption that this is, of course, counterfeit goods that you're buying. But if you take another example and maybe go to Amazon, like the online marketplace, and you maybe go to their German platform and you find, let's say, a watch that is 10% discount, I would say that most of us would not find the likelihood of purchasing a counterfeit product there is quite high. But we have for sure seen quite many instances of this happening, and this is because it looks like a genuine storefront, a genuine business, but there's actually a risk of purchasing counterfeit even on such platforms that most of the consumers would believe are legit. So it for sure happens also there, and maybe these are even more important because if you are at the beach in Thailand and you see like very, very cheap products that maybe cost 1/10 of the retail price, I guess you must be pretty naive to assume that this is like a good bargain you're doing and purchasing the genuine product, but to a very good price. But if you are on Amazon, like it's more or less close to the retail price, just maybe a little discount, you would not think that this could be counterfeit goods, but reality has proven the opposite. So it's the most important maybe to protect the customers that don't know, like that they're not sure if they're buying a counterfeit product or a genuine product. So maybe that's where we aim most of our resources to set up like a proactive defense that that would stop like potential customers from buying counterfeit products on the legit platforms.
Have you guys, you who actually work with this on a daily basis for, Peter 1.5 years, and I think Alexander and Coraline have worked more than 5 years. But it's how easy is it for you to get trapped in this, that see this on a daily basis as well? Have you ever got trapped when working with, or is it confidential for it?
No, I think it's difficult to know actually, but I think I have 3 sons, teenagers, and they are quite aware about when it comes to counterfeited fashion, that it exists, and they also understand if there's something is a really bargain, is usually not a counterfeit. So I think the fashion industry, or within the fashion industry, is quite well known. But as one example that Coraline brought up earlier about the car industry. So I read a report that in Australia, the automotive industry have done some surveys, and they found out that over 50% of all the car parts that was bought through shops and stuff like that, when you had to repair your car, were counterfeited, and that is truly difficult to discover.
Coraline, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I do. From my personal experience as a Chinese, most Chinese are very aware of counterfeiting issues. So they always check first if it is a legitimate source, which means if you are buying from Taobao or you're buying from Tmall, there's a big difference. And also consumers are putting more and more pressure on the online marketplace like JD.com or Tmall.com to ask them to do test purchase and also to verify if the product is genuine, to be responsible if the product is not genuine. So the regulations are also putting more and more responsibilities for online market sellers. But as a consumer, we are still quite cautious when we buy product. It's not only about price, because in China, you could get a very low price for genuine and good product. But you need to first check the source. Second, check the insurance for you to be able to return the goods if it's fake. And also, to be honest to yourself, to write a comment to the product if you convinced you bought the product which is fake, because comment for online marketplace is very important. Of course, comment can be manipulated as well, but yes, there are always loopholes for a system. For my own, I would always keep the receipt. At the same time, check online first on the official website how it looks like and how it should be, and then start purchasing something elsewhere. For Mercedes-Benz in the past, buying it from the authorized store is the most reliable way. But of course, for fashion and other things, different industry is different.
Good. I think, have we Alexander with us still? He's, I think he's bad connection during this session. But I think we're moving forward. Coraline, you talked about this happens a lot in China and Asia, and people over there is more aware of it maybe. But for us who lives in Sweden, or I think most of the participants today have their places in Sweden, how often is it to, like, do we have this in Halmstad, for instance? How usually is it to see it in Sweden?
Yeah.
You start.
Okay. Yeah. In Sweden, indeed, people have less awareness or less sensitive to counterfeit because Sweden is a quite clean country compared to all the countries I have traveled. If you buy things from the well-known shops or those online markets, most of them are genuine. But if you visit a small shop, for instance, in Halmstad, it's a summer city, we have quite a lot of buyer shop only opens in the summer. And then they start selling a cell phone case, accessories, or some fashion goods just for the summer. then you really need to think twice if it has certain famous brand, if it's genuine or not.
Yeah, and that's, it's interesting because you see, as you say, it's a summer city here, and I have a summer place at Gotland. It's the same there, and you see those stores and pop-ups that you don't see at during the winter. So it's an interesting thought. Peter, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think at least some of you might have read about the counterfeited COVID face masks that turned up last year. And I think there's a typical example when something changes really rapidly, and there's an opportunity for counterfeiters to be quick on the market with some new products that are really high demand. This is a typical good example when they can use this, situation for earn money. So I think so. This is definitely happening in Sweden as well, in many areas.
That was actually one of my questions too. With during now the COVID-19 pandemic, how have that affected the counterfeiting market and brand protect for you as a brand protector? Have it changed, or is it still the same? You mentioned the masks. Is there something else that we?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the COVID. What happened with the COVID? What drives most of the counterfeiting industry? I mean, it has been raising every year the last 15 years, and it's been driven by globalization, because it's easy to trade goods and not to really know exactly the origin of the goods, and also online sales, the e-commerce sites. And of course, during COVID, the trade on online has grown also rapidly. So it has, for the counterfeiting industry, it has meant that it also been rising. And except for that, the example with the COVID mask and other things, we also have other companies that we're talking to that had doing, breathing machines for hospitalities, and that was also something that was lacking in the business or in the industry. They had too few machines to help you breathe, so they also found those machines out in the market which were counterfeited, just because the demand grew quite quickly.
Interesting. Alexander, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, sure. So we definitely saw an increase in the activities of the counterfeit sellers around the world, especially during the early COVID. I guess since e-commerce had maybe like a fast forward growth in these like initial months of the COVID pandemic, which also probably led to a lot of people maybe seeking the opportunity to start like putting up their own web shops and like sell products of their own. So we definitely saw an increase in all the data indicators we have on this, and we actually did find face masks with the brand Daniel Wellington printed on them. Like, needless to say, it was of course not us who like quite dramatically jumped into this business area. So this was during the early months, maybe April, May 2020. We saw this and of course enforced upon this instantly, because we got a lot of questions from like to our customer service, like, are these real Daniel Wellington masks, and like, did you suddenly start manufacturing them? And of course we did not. So we tried to take them off the market and track down the sellers as quick as we could. But yeah, all in all, we have seen, like, probably due to the growth of e-commerce since last year, there's also definitely an increase of counterfeit sales online.
And what's now when you're giving this example with the COVID mask for Daniel Wellington, how is it for you as brand protection manager? Is it stressful, or is it like your head on the stake? What's your thoughts when you see something like that?
I would like to call it like a positive stress, because I very much cherish the work we're doing. And it's also like, it could be like good to know that counterfeiting is not like a challenge or a problem that you tackle and then it's solved for all future. Like, it's more like a whack-a-mole game. So if you're in a theme park and you hit the beavers with the hammer, like whenever you hit the beaver, it goes down and then it comes up in a new hole just a second after. It's a little bit like that with counterfeiting. You chase down the bad guys, like the counterfeit sellers, but it only takes a week, and the same seller pops up in a new place, or maybe a relative to the seller pops up in a new shape, or just a new business. So like it's maybe an endless struggle, which is of course very funny and challenging. But as long as you have a brand that is relevant and is selling well, there will always be people like parasiting on the brand and trying to sell counterfeits with your trademark on them. So it's an ongoing struggle.
We have about 4 minutes left for this session, so I want to say to you participants who have questions or wonderings regarding this, please ask them, and we will try to have the time for taking them up. But a question for you, Coraline and Peter at the DH Anticounterfeit. You have like a big international clientele. Can you spot the difference between countries and countries? You have talked about it a bit. Or is it some country that is like a step forward than the others? Or how do the in general, the international market look like?
I can start a little bit, and then Coraline can jump in. When we see different countries, of course, the countries or the that are targeted for this are countries that have a lot of big brands. So our main market is Central Europe and US because they have most famous brands. But what we have seen is, or what we, from our point of view, I mean, we're developing a software solution for those brand protection teams to keep track of all this data and all the cases and try to make sense of it all. And we sell to various industries in those countries. And what we see is that people tend to work very similar, regardless if you're working with counterfeiters from the automotive industry, from consumer electronics, to pharma and so on. So I think there's a very similar pattern. When it comes to counterfeiting in specific countries, I think Coraline can answer that question better than I can.
Yes, for awareness of counterfeiting issues, also the enforcement of counterfeiting issues, definitely Asia countries, especially China, is the top one country. Because first of all, it's one of the biggest manufacturer to the whole world. Second, it has the most active counterfeiting problems as well. At the same time, for enforcing brand protection, you would choose a country which bring the most effect. Of course, then you would choose Europe and Americans because those products are sold more expensive and the purchase power is bigger in those countries. So in general, counterfeiting issue is a global activity, plus the country with in a transaction position, for instance, Turkey, Dubai. Those are big ports. It's not necessary to be a big market, but still you need to cover those areas because they are transition points for shipments. Between countries, I think all the countries are aware of those issues, especially if it's an international brand. For Nordic countries, probably a bit less active because in the market here, especially if it's a domestic market, the market here is quite clean, so people are less active. But as long as you go international, like Daniel Wellington, you will be aware everywhere you need to enforce.
Yeah. We have less than a minute, but we have one question, so you will have a few seconds to answer it because I think it's important to take it up. Have you seen an interest in the use of non-fungible token together with physical products in order to use blockchain technologies to prove the originality of the product? Feel free. Who wants to say something?
I can say just 2 words. I think to tackle this brand protection in general, you need to use technology and digitalization. That is the answer, or not the only answer, but one of the things you can do to tackle those problems. I think there's various pillars in this in brand protection from a digital point of view. One is what we are doing. We're helping the brand protection team to keep track of their data and do cross references and stuff like that, and find repeat infringers and all those kind of things. Then you also have tools looking at online trade and see if they can spot products online that it can take down. And the third one is that mentioning here, where there are a few companies that are doing labeling or certain blockchain technologies to make sure that you can authenticate your product via an app or stuff like that. So it's definitely part of the complete ecosystem for handling, brand protection management now and in the future.
Yeah, I could add a little bit more on this topic. On the NFTA solution, actually, we do see the semiconductor industry already doing this, or their product itself contains such solution for them to identify their product. But for blockchain technology among our current clients, we haven't seen a clear implementation of that. But for copyright industry, for instance, if you want to confirm this release of a journal, this release of a film is the initial source, yes, blockchain is already used. So yeah, it's a matter of cost. If it's for physical product, how to implement it in a vast scale with a very or minimum cost is always the consideration for the manufacturer of the company.
Good last words. Thank you. And with that said, we are running out of time, or we ahead of time. So thank you, Peter, Alexander, and Coraline, for joining us today during this interesting talk and giving some good perspectives on counterfeiting and brand protection. For you who still listen, we're going to the last session, and we will talk about, together with Stena Recycling Group and Battery Loop, about how you can have circular solutions with battery from cars. So that will be an interesting talk too. So until we start that at 11 o'clock, and we want to thank you guys for joining us today, and hopefully we see you soon. Bye.